here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, the return is in place. And when I say return, sometimes we're thinking that maybe King Richard the Lionheart is coming back and riding through the streets on his steed, coming back from the Crusades. Well, this may not be that type of return, but this is a return back to something that we love, something that I hope you have missed, and that is Outside the Sheds, where we all come together and talk about the world of sport. Now, the world of sport we usually talk about is rugby league, and before, some AFL, some Aussie Rules football. But this return is a little bit different. That's right, old Papa Shedadamus is back. That is right, hell is frozen over. That is right, we are sitting here live recording this. All right? So, before I go any further, I want to kind of talk about where the shed has been. And I think it's kind of real. And, if you've listened to this podcast, you know I have no problem being real, saying things how they are, saying things how they might mean to me. And they might all, and I say this, it might not mean the same thing to you, but it's my podcast, so that's how this works. But I just needed to take some time to get away. And I think a lot of us went through some really tough times when the world ended, hashtag COVID and other things. And as you know, listening to this incredible voice, I live in America. As I call it, the divided states of America, which means that it is crazy over here. Plain and simple. We all act like we're kumbaya and that we somewhat love each other, but it's a scary place, and that's where I live, and it's been a crazy time, and we just try to get through it in our best way that we possibly can and go forward and try to live our lives, but it takes a toll. And I know all of us have our fears and our problems and things that we're striving to conquer and to get over, but sometimes you have to unplug. And fortunately for me, this podcast I do not to put the luxury Benzo in the parking lot, / driveway. I do it because I love the sport. And this sport needed 100% of me. This podcast needed 100% of me to be the podcast that I want to put out there. And that means that if I don't feel like I've got it, or if I feel like it's not the best me, I'm not going to put it out there. Because there's too many people recording things and listing things and social influencers, which is the biggest joke in the world to me. But there's too many people putting that type of stuff out there that they truthfully don't even believe in. And I refuse to be one of those people. When we talk about this sport that I love and the world of sports that I love, it's going to be passionate. It's going to be hard-hitting. It's going to leave something for you to think about when we get done. And that's why I'm here. And that's what I love to do. And that's what we're going to do from this point forward. So I kind of mentioned to you that there's going to be a little bit of a change up with Outside the Sheds right now. And that's one of the reasons is I really kind of, spread myself a little bit thin doing the podcast because I don't have any writers. I know you guys love Mrs. Shedadamus, but she does no writing for this podcast. It is 100% me and me alone. So it takes a lot of work to put this podcast together. And I know I don't need any of you guys banging a drum and singing any type of hymns for my soul and my spirit for this. But it does take a lot of work. And it takes a lot of work on my end to try to put out the best content that I possibly can. So when I went with the reboot and seeing how we were going to get this thing started again, I thought the best way for me to do it is to really kind of narrow it down to just one niche, and that niche is going to be rugby league going forward. I love Aussie Rules football. It is not as easy for me to get Aussie Rules football over here in the divided states as it is rugby league. We'll find out a little bit more about that later on in this podcast, how crazy it's getting over here for the great game of rugby league. But I really wanted to just streamline this down to rugby league, NRL, and kind of hit this stuff as hard as you possibly can as we do it. So going forward, that's what our focus will be. That's what our dialogue is going to cover. And it's not that I won't. You know me. I can drift occasionally, and not any, how should we say, Fast and Furious type of drifting. But I can drift into other lanes. And we will sometimes mention what's going on in the AFL or any other sport. There's a reason we do Outside the Bubble, which we haven't been in a bubble for a while, but we keep it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to dive into that. So I want to go forward with this by just doing a little bit of recap of some things that have happened. And I think to me the most important thing that's happened since we last spoke, and that is the ending of the 2023 season. And that's with a grand final recap. As we all know, an incredible game, one of the most incredible games of any sport that I have ever seen. We all know it ended. Panthers 26, Broncos 24. Shedheads, I'm saying this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Heart is what that game was. And that is, to me, one of those matches that's going to continue to just get better as time goes along. We're talking a fine wine right here. Because we watched greatness in that grand final. And to me, the defining ingredient for somebody who's a champion is heart, right? Heart, to me, will get you through the toughest times. It will make you, it makes players that maybe aren't as good as other players lift their level to even surpass the players that are supposedly the best on the field. It was something to behold, because the first half was okay. It wasn't like it was a bad first half for the grand final. But that second half is something that if they could just cut it and put it into, what do they call those? A time capsule to watch what championships should be like, that's what it was. Because we found new heroes going forward, the Ezra Man, the game because if the Broncos win that game, we already know who the Clive Churchill is going to be. It's going to be Ezra Man, right? He, 3 tries, the way that he played the game, his acceleration, and you can see how he was strapped up. He was hurt. He was carrying around an injury, like all rugby league players do when we get to that point of the season. He was pulling an injury, and he still was lifting his level. And so you can look at that and go for sure that guy was going to be the MVP of that game if it finished the way that it did. Because after having that 8-0 start that the Panthers took the lead with, the Broncos just grabbed the game, shook it like a dog shakes its pillow, and just said, this is going to be our grand final. And there's a new king in town. And they riled off 24 straight points to go up 24-8. And I really didn't know what to think because, truthfully, I'm just there as a bystander. I'm like Switzerland with this. These are none of the teams that I follow, even though I think we've all followed Penrith in this, going for the trifecta, going for the treble. And we followed the baby Broncos not making the finals 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden making the finals this year, and how they learned so much from that I don't know, the bottom falling out of that season before. But it was incredible to watch just Reece Walsh, Ezra Man working together, the old general kicking from the middle. It was something special. But then greatness stepped out. And I don't like to call players great easily. I just don't. Like Tom Brady, a lot of people still say is the greatest quarterback to play the game. And it's tough for me to say that. Yes, he's won more Super Bowls than everybody else. But I watched Joe Montana at his best. And now I'm watching Patrick Mahomes, that a lot of people never thought that Tom Brady's record of 7 Super Bowls was going to be pushed. But looking where Patrick Mahomes is right now, that could be something in the future if Pat Mahomes plays as long as he does, that he could challenge Brady. So I know greatness, right? I know it. I just don't really throw that word around. I saw greatness in that second half. I saw greatness because with 23 minutes left in the game, knowing that they're probably not going to ever have a chance to win 3 championships in a row again. Not saying they won't win another grand final, but winning 3 in a row will be very, very tough for any team to do, let alone do it again after winning 2 more after this. You know what I'm saying? I watched Nathan Cleary, a player, put a team on his back and say, we will not lose. And when the game finished, I just sat there. I sat there mesmerized because you just don't see this. I don't care what sport that you watch, but to watch a guy, one man, just lift his entire game and pull his team with you. It was, I just got on watching some of the second half today again as I kind of started putting everything together for this podcast. And I still finished the game almost in awe of what I just saw. And I watched it live when it first happened. And to see it again, Nathan Cleary's performance was even greater now than even the first time I saw it, because I knew what was going to happen, and it still blew me away. It still blew me away. Because to put that type of comeback, to score 3 tries in 23 minutes, and probably even a little less than 23 minutes, because it was around 23 and some change after Adam Reynolds kicked the 2 points after the try. It was just, it's something special. And I think after all the things that I've had problems with the game of rugby league recently in the NRL and the way with the high contacts and a lot of the referees having a lot of say in what's going on and, high contacts when guys fall in, we're not going to go into that right now. But it made me love the game again and really made me just get hungry for what that game can be watching that. It was incredible. I'm hoping you all got to see that match. If you can't, you need to find it. I don't care what your sport of choice is. You will see something special watching that grand final. And I'm happy after 5 months of it being completed that watching it again, that again, I can still say that it is a great, great match with a great, great player that if he keeps this up, kind of like I was talking with Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be an immortal just for the game that he has. So that was the end of the season. That is how it ended. We've got a 3-time champion now in the Penrith Panthers. It's going to be very, very tough for Penrith to win 4 in a row. The loss of Stephen Crichton and players like of that ilk. They got one more ride with Jerome Luai, but it's going to be tough for them to do that. But we did see a treble, first time in 40 years since the Parramatta Eels. That's right, Dom. I said your boys. But since they did that we got to see some history in the game of rugby league and the NRL. Now, as we go into the 40-20, there's only 2 words I need to say to kick off the 40-20. Vegas, baby. That's right, Vegas. The NRL taking the game to start the season, bringing it to the city of sin. I don't even know what to say. Like, I heard last year in the middle of the season, there was rumblings that Peter V'landys wanted to bring the first opening round, however they were going to do it, to Vegas. And I was like, there's no way they're going to do that. But then it kept picking up steam and picking up steam and picking up steam and picking up steam. And people started getting excited about it. And I'm excited about it because it's a heck of a lot short of a flight for me flying from my ranch to Vegas than it is for me flying to Sydney, Australia. But it became a fact. It's going down. We are a matter of days away of the NRL, the 2024 NRL season kicking off in Viva Las Vegas. That's right, Pelvy. I just stole your line. We're going there. It is going to start. It's kicking off. We've got 2 matches that are going to start it. The Manly Sea Eagles up against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Russell Crowe will be hopefully in town. I'll be able to talk to the Gladiator myself. Well, we don't know about that, but we'll see. Against Wolverine. That's going to be something special to watch. I don't know if Wolverine will be there. Maybe he's going to be hanging out with Deadpool. Who knows? And then the second match, the Roosters against the Broncos. Reese Walsh and his tiny little sister shorts will be in Vegas running around, trying not to, how should I say, steal too many hearts as he runs around the field. And the cool thing about this whole thing is a lot of people around the world just saw the stadium for the Super Bowl where the Chiefs just won. So this has been a pretty action-packed area. Now, there's something else going on in Vegas at the same time. Madonna's kicking off her world tour that same weekend. So that's going to be quite incredible to see Madonna fans hanging out with rugby league fans and there's normal Vegas people thrown in there as an appetizer. It could get eventful. But I am not one to shy away from eventful. Shedheads, that's right. Mrs. Shedadamus and myself are going to take our luxury plane. We're flying to Vegas. We hit Vegas Thursday afternoon, and I will be there for all the festivities all the way to the end when Ludacris hits the stage and sends us all off with a smile on our face. It's going to be a great time. I'm really, really excited for it. I think getting through, I hate packing, Shedheads. I hate packing. Hold on, let me say that again. I hate packing. It's one of the things that I despise. I'm one of those people that I always think that I'm going to leave something, and there's nothing I can leave that I couldn't afford to buy once I get to ground zero, but I freak the hell out about packing. I hate it. Mrs. Shedadamus is rubbing my back, trying to keep me controlled as I try to go through my breakdown of if I've got enough toothpaste in the luggage. But besides all of that, I'm really excited to get back. I've not been to Vegas for I guess I had a friend that got married there. So I haven't been to Vegas since then. So the world hadn't ended yet. So it was still kind of normal. But it's going to be a great time. You know, a lot of the Fox League shows are going to be there. A lot of people to rub elbows with. It's going to be an eventful thing. I don't know. I've heard mixed messages about how full the stadium is. I know we've got pretty damn good seats, so that's going to be really nice. We got in early. But I'm really excited to see what this turnout's going to be. What is going to be the turnout from Americans? How many people are coming from across the pond? Who's coming over from Australia and New Zealand to come see this? Maybe England, people flying in from. But I think it would be tough to go against Peter V'landys. The guy kept the game alive during COVID. He was the one that kind of kept something as the whole rest of the world was going into hiding. Rugby League and the NRL were the only ones that went out in front and said, we can make this happen. And I think this is why Vegas is happening, because I think Peter V'landys and the NRL saw how lucrative Vegas could be with gambling. And if they can get the NRL and getting people to drop a little coin on some South Sydney Rabbitohs or whatever, getting that international money coming in for gambling could be a thing that really adds more money to the coffers for the NRL and really keeps this game, the trajectory going straight up where I think they really, really want it to. So Vegas is happening. Hopefully the boys are staying out of control. All of them are there. I know the Roosters are practicing at UCLA. So a lot of the teams are staying away from Vegas until like 48 hours before. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens because as Americans, we all know that sometimes Vegas and the Super Bowl and things like that can bring out craziness out of people. It used to be always who was going to get into trouble on Super Bowl week, right? Which player from which team was going to do something asinine. So hopefully the guys don't get into that type of problem and that they understand that they're on a national stage and they better keep themselves at the highest of standing. So Vegas coming up in a matter of hours. Now, as we continue, we're going to look at some of the big stories that have kind of happened leading up to this opening round. And after leading New Zealand to a 30-0 victory over the Kangaroos, the first major, I guess, rock to fall in this sort of off-season would have been Madge Maguire saying adios to the Kiwis and saying hello to New South Wales being named the new Blues head coach, taking the place of Freddie Fittler. And I got to tell you something. For me, I need the phone number for Madge McGuire's agent, because somehow Madge McGuire is staying in the know. He keeps getting more jobs. And I know that he did something that a lot of people have never been able to do, and that is getting South Sydney their Grand Final championship, getting their premiers. But this guy, the debacle that happened at the Tigers under his watch, and I know a lot of that had to do with a lot of things behind the scenes too, but Madge has a way of running to a certain point, and then in his style of coaching becomes kind of like nails on a chalkboard. It happened at South Sydney. It happened with the Tigers. And I'm really curious to see, because he would not have been my first choice to be the Blues head coach. I have been kind of hard on my criticism of Madge at times, but I don't know. I will tell you this. Unless something really unheard of or unseen or something we didn't think would really manifest happens, you have to have a strong happiness if you are a Queensland Maroon right now. Because I don't think there's anything that Madge is going to be able to put down that Billy Slater's not going to be able to counter with the way that he's got that juggernaut going up in Queensland. So it'll be interesting, but it is a major, major change in the dynamic, seeing Freddie gone and Madge in. So only time will tell, and we're only a few months from that time being able to be told. So we talk about movement and dominoes falling and everything, and one of the big moves that we knew was going to happen was Stephen Crichton was leaving the Panthers. It was his last season, and then he was going over with Gus Gould's boys, the Canterbury Bulldogs, and Cameron Ciraldo got his guy. Crichton's coming in. Well, just a few days ago, he was named the head coach. The head coach. He was named the captain. Yes, he was named the head coach. Ciraldo stepped down, and now Stephen Crichton is going to play and coach. No, that's not. No, he is going to be the captain for the 2024 season for the Canterbury Bulldogs. Ciraldo said he needed a new voice. He needed somebody that had a pedigree that hopefully can drag his team to seeing victory and hard work in a different way. And it's not that I really question Stephen Crichton. I think that he is maybe the best center in the game. He's that good. He's just a special guy. The way that he can read and his intercepts are incredible. But it's always really strange for me to see a guy get named captain who still hasn't suited up for a regular season game for your team. I think I can only remember Wayne Gretzky when he left Edmonton and went to the LA Kings back in the day. The moment his feet landed in LA, he was given the C the moment he stepped off the plane. But besides that, a lot of guys, don't even want to be the captain because you've got to learn about your teammates. You've got to learn about tradition, all that type of stuff. So this is a bold move by Cameron Ciraldo naming Crichton as the captain. But, Gus Gould must be down with it because Gus wouldn't have let it be go down or allowed him to be appointed if he didn't think it was a good idea too. So we've got a new captain, and it's going to be interesting to see. The Dogs have made some pretty bold moves in this offseason to see if the Dogs become the Dogs of War again, which with that fan base, it would be really, really nice to see them really be able to get off the mat and go forward. So interesting to see. Interesting decision made by Cameron Ciraldo, but you can't call into question the guy he gave it to because he's a straight gun. And finally, to close down the 40-20 Shedheads, I don't even know where to start with this. I don't even know what to say, truthfully. Positive news from the West Tigers. I know. Listen. You can't stone me. I'm just reporting right here. Positive news from the West Tigers. As the Benji Marshall era starts up, as it begins maybe to me, the biggest story of all the things that I said, besides, the three-peat by Penrith, is the moves the West Tigers have made. And to me, the boldest of that is the firing of the entire board and Chairman Lee Hajipatelis being shown the door. And Chief Executive Justin Pascoe resigning. And I've said for 95 of my 97 episodes of this podcast that those guys needed to go. The Tigers have not been to the finals in 12 years. And the Tigers have a very, very, very strong fan base. Very strong and prideful fan base. I don't know why I just sounded like a 12-year-old when I said prideful, but they have an incredible fan base. And to be given what they have been given from losing players, the captain of the Roosters, Tiger, Mitchell Moses, Tiger, the amount of players that you can say that at one time wore the Tigers jersey that for whatever reason, the upper management, the board, whoever you want to say, thought that these guys weren't good enough, that we weren't going to sign them. Can you just picture the team the Tigers would have if these guys wouldn't have fumbled things up? So if you're a Tigers fan, you've got to be over the moon right now with this fresh start. And then after all of that happens, and you're drunk on Boone's Farm whiskey because being so happy, news drops that Jerome Luai is not going back to Penrith, but has signed a 5-year deal to come be the halfback of the Tigers. And to me, that's pretty darn exciting in the standpoint that Benji Marshall will now have a half. And you have to understand the relationship between those two. Benji and Jerome were roommates at the All-Stars game, Benji's last year. And he really got to know Jerome Luai. And Jerome Luai has always looked up to Benji. And he got to see him as a normal man. Not just some guy that he was just like, wow. But as a normal guy. And I think that that's where this all started from. And that's why when people tell you time and time again to leave a great impression because you never know where that's going to take you, Benji left a great impression with Jerome Luai. And that, I think, has paid its way forward. So much so that even though he's going to make some great money, that Benji coaxed Jerome Luai to leave a juggernaut of a team to come be the face of the West Tigers. And after the board and Lee and Pascal being shown the door, for that to drop, it just feels like a page has been turned for the West Tigers. It feels to me that after having back-to-back wooden spoons, that this is the first positive that the team has had for I would say this is the most positive that Tigers fans have felt since Benji came back. And even with Benji coming back, they didn't make the finals. But that type of a happiness going on with the club, it's really great to see. It's really, really exciting. And like I said, going into a season, it's going to be interesting to see. I think the Tigers, under Benji, it's going to take them, I would say, 4 or 5 weeks. But I think the Tigers are going to play some incredible football this year. I think Aiden Caesar's going to play very, very well. And I think that the Tigers are going to surprise a lot of people. They're going to surprise. I'm not up here to predict that they are going to, go to the finals or anything like that. But I think they're going to get some scalps. And I think they're going to beat some teams this year that are not going to be expecting them to play the way that they had and the way that they will. So, really exciting times. I'm happy for the Tigers. I'm happy for Tigers fans. And let's hope that this is the dawning of a new future for the club. Shedheads, when we go outside the bubble this week, we're going in a different direction. I told you already the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I didn't tell you Tiger already dropped out of another tournament because of back spasms. There's a lot of things going on in sports. My New Jersey Devils are probably not going to make the playoffs how we're playing, but we're not going to talk about the Devs either. What we're going to talk about is a venture that Mrs. Shedadamus put into action that, yeah, I think if you all have a special significant other in your life and they are a go-getter, Mrs. Shedadamus is a go-getter. And I can't even describe to you when I say go-getter how much that means. She is a force to be reckoned with. So she all of a sudden started bouncing around this idea of doing a rugby league book for Americans or people that don't know the game too much. And she's like, why not? Why not? Why not? Well, lo and behold, you can't say no. Happy wife, happy life. There is a book coming out from your Shedadamus, but very much with Mrs. Shedadamus on board on this too, that you're going to be able to get your hands on in the near future. On my Instagram page, Outside the Sheds, we will be putting the book cover up for you guys to see that here shortly. You'll be able to get it on Amazon. You will be able to get it. Actually, put your hand. You don't forget, I told you time and time again, I am the son of a librarian. So anytime I can have pages, a little bit of dead tree in my hand, recycled dead tree, thank you, I'm going to do that. And so there's going to be actual physical copies of this. You can always get in touch with me after you buy 12 copies. I will sign one of them for you. I'm joking. I will be more than willing to sign any type of copy of the book. But we are going to have another update about that. I think I'm going to be in Vegas, so I'm going to take some copies of my book with me. Now it's your hands. It's your problem to find what I look like and who I am to say, are you the Shedadamus? Because you will get a free book from me if you find out that I'm the Shedadamus. Because there's a good chance that my books will be off the press by the time we get on the plane to go out there. So hopefully that's the case. But really exciting times. I'm really happy to be back with you guys. As you can see, we're going a lot more concise again, like I said about this podcast. We're going to hit some hard-hitting stuff. And, I'm not picking this first week's games because I'm going to be there in the midst of it. But starting next weekend, we will go into some more picks when we finish out the 40-20. Because, hey, the Shedadamus, that's what we do. We pick winners, right? But I'm really excited to be back, Shedheads. I really can't describe to you what this feeling is to be back in front of this microphone to talk to you guys again. And I hope you're all doing well. I hope you come back on board with this because we're going to have a good time with this podcast. We're going to talk about the game that we love. And again, thank you for being back. Thank you for listening to this. But until next time, I'm Corey Jackson. This is Outside the Sheds. And hey, if you're in Vegas, come say hi. See ya!
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.